Hey guys, it's Maymay, and this is a different video today, but one that I think needs to be done. So I get so many questions about which electronic cutting machine you should buy. And I've done a little bit of discussion about this before, like I've talked on Facebook about it. I know we did a live about it one time, but I thought I'd just come to you here today, and I'm taking advantage of today to do it because I know a lot of you guys are shopping now for your Christmas gifts, or you're asking people for Christmas gifts, and maybe you're spending money you got for Christmas. And I just want to tell you my thoughts on electronic cutting machines. This is not the end all be all of everyone's thoughts. These are my thoughts. You may disagree, you may agree, but I think I'm gonna give you some pretty good tips and tricks for when you're deciding what to purchase. Maybe a long video, but I really just wanna have all this information in one spot, so when people ask this question, I can send them to a good place to get the information. Okay, so first off, what is an electronic cutting machine? You may be new to crafting or electronic cutting machines and not know. Pretty much, there's like three that get talked about the most. They're the Cricut brand, they are the Brother brand, and there is the Silhouette brand. We'll talk about other models as we get going. An electronic cutting machine is a machine that works with like a computer file to cut an image out of various materials. So things like vinyl, if you want to make those cool shirts that you see, or if you want to put vinyl on mugs and glasses and things that you give away to people. You can even make a business with your electronic cutting machine depending on the one that you get. It's great. They're great for paper crafters as well because there's all kinds of cool cards you can make, lots of interesting cutouts, and with most of the machines nowadays, you can really get personal with things. If you've been watching my channel last week, you would have seen two videos we did using the Cricut where we did some really personal gifts, and that's a cool thing to think about with your electronic cutting machines. Now, when it comes time to purchase one, everybody says to me, if you could buy one today, what would it be? And at the end of this video, I'm gonna answer that, but I wanna give you some information before we get there, okay? First off, full disclosure, I have never used a Silhouette machine, never, ever, okay? I've never owned one, touched one. I've seen one in person, but I've never messed with it. Here's how that happened to me, because I want you to know how I became educated the way I am, okay? I had a friend named Sheila, and Sheila had a Cricut, a regular Cricut machine. When I say that, I mean the old style, which was the expression machine that used cartridges and things like that. And she and I both had that machine, and we had a love-hate relationship with that machine. It was very cool when it worked, and it was a little cumbersome to use. So we would use it, but not as often as we wanted to. Well, then she bought a Silhouette Cameo machine. I didn't buy another machine. I thought, I'm not gonna get a machine, I don't enjoy them. So she bought a Silhouette Cameo, and she'd had it for a month or so, and she kept telling me how great it was, how much she loved it, how she loved how it was so much easier than cartridges, etc. Well, right about that time, Cricut released the Cricut Explore. This is the very first machine that used the online software program. So they released it then. She said to me, because I was trying to decide about a machine, and at the time I wanted the Brother Scan and Cut. That's what I wanted. She said, do not buy a machine. Listen to me. Stop what you're doing. And she said, listen, you've got to buy the Cricut. And I'm like, okay, why? She's like, it's so much easier. The software is so much easier. Don't listen to what I told you before. Buy the Cricut. Okay? So when she said that, I really respected her opinion, and I felt like if she already knew the softwares of the other machines, then I would listen to her. So about that time, well, that year for Christmas, I asked for the Cricut Explore, and I got did I get the original one? I can't remember, it's been a long time, but I got a Cricut Explore for Christmas. And I was so glad I listened to her because I feel like the software is super easy to use. And I was able to kind of master it really quick, okay, all by myself. So that's why when I talk today, I'm gonna speak to you about the Cricut Explore, or the Cricut machines, and the Brother Scan and Cut machines, because those are the ones I own. I never bought the Silhouette. I'm not against a Silhouette. I don't even have enough information to tell you about a Silhouette. The information I do have has come from friends, and it's led me in a different direction from the Silhouette. So if you have a Silhouette machine and you love it, totally awesome. That's cool. I'm so neutral where this is concerned, okay? So if What you need to think about when you're considering an electronic cutting machine, this is the next question I want us to cover, okay? It's not just about which machine is the best machine on the market. The first thing you really need to think about is this: what is your craft? What do you do and what do you want to do with your machine? The reason I say that is different machines really specialize in different things. So for example, if you want to do fabric cutting, this is a very good example, okay? If you want to make quilts and use fabric, in my opinion, based on what I've seen from the machines I own and the machines that I've seen in the past, no machine does fabric better than the Cricut Maker. Right now on the market, it is the bomb for fabric. It has a rotary cutter. That blade is incredible. I've done some really cool projects with it. I'm gonna link all my Cricut and Scan and stuff in the description for you guys. I can't imagine trying to do with fabric what I can do with my Maker on my older machines. It just wouldn't do it. Now, if you have an Explorer, Air, 1, 2, whatever, they will cut fabric. You have to do a couple things to make that work, but nothing like the Maker. So if I was a seamstress or a quilter or a handbag maker or someone who made aprons or things like that, I wouldn't even consider another machine but the Maker because of what it can do with fabric. Now, if you're a stamper and you want to save money on dies, you don't want to buy dies anymore because they can get expensive. Every time you get a stamp set, you have to buy the die to go with it. You 100% should consider the Scan and Cut. It's amazing for that. But that's what I use my Scan and Cut for, cutting stamped images. That's pretty much it. We'll talk about that again in a second. So first you want to think about what your craft is and do your research to discover which machine fits your craft the best, all right? Vinyl crafts and paper crafts, pretty much any Cricut machine out there, any of them are great for vinyl and paper crafts. But when you get into chipboard and fancier materials you might want to cut, acetates, I'm trying to think of other thicker materials, you might consider the Maker for that because it is a little better at that. Plus, it gives you some better options for cutting, like the knife blade, and you've got the rotary blade, etc. So those are things to think about. What is your craft and what machine works with your craft, okay? So if you have a craft that you do and you would like my opinion on what machine I would use for that craft, put it in the comments below. Tell me, hey Maymay, I'm this kind of crafter. Which machine would you recommend? And I'll let you know. I've done a lot of research, okay? So I might just know the one that's right for you. At least I can make a suggestion. The next thing you have to consider is this: how can you use your machine? Now let me explain what I mean by that. The Silhouette and the Cricut all need a software to use them, okay? They are not a plug and play machine where they have anything self-contained that you can make from the machine itself. You've got to have a computer, an iPhone or an iPad, or a tablet of sorts. You have to have internet in most cases. In the Silhouette's case, you don't have to have internet all the time. They have a downloadable software. So you have to consider which machine works best for your environment, okay? For example, with me, my home is in the country, okay? So we don't have great internet connection. When my internet works, it's amazing. But when my internet doesn't work, it just doesn't work. And it can decide to work at 5 o'clock in the evening and by 8 o'clock it's done. That's just my internet. It's awful. So for me, if I were running a business from my Cricut machine, I would have to think about that, because if it was Wi-Fi based and my internet was terrible, I would need to think this may not be the machine for me. You might consider the Silhouette, where you can get a downloadable software for something like that and you can use it anytime, okay? Now, Cricut has done something where you're able to use like your iOS device offline, so you can do a lot of your stuff offline without, when you don't have good Wi-Fi on those devices. And we're going to talk about devices in a second, okay? But you need to consider that. So what your craft is, what machine works for your environment, which sounds crazy, but it's true. And then what technology you have at home that will work with the machine. Now you got to hear this, because this is important. A lot of times when I'm teaching a class for the Cricut, people will come in and say, I bought the Cricut, I didn't have a computer or a laptop or anything, so my cousin had this laptop in their basement they weren't using and they gave it to me. That's not going to work, because these machines are very modern technology and they work with modern technology. So you might have a laptop or computer that's outdated, or that the software of that, or even the hardware necessarily, the software of that machine or that computer doesn't speak with the Cricut. or with any cutting machine, you need to think about that. Like if your computer or laptop is not able to be updated to the most modern or the most new updates, you got to think about that. There are requirements for the machines to work. For example, I had a lady one time who was given a laptop, and it was probably 10 years old, and even the updates just didn't run well on it. The machine was just an older machine, and that happens. Like, software and hardware just can't be supported forever, right? So she was really sad because she had this brand new beautiful machine, but her computer just could not run even the internet well. It was very, very frustrating. So you want to think about that. What am I going to be using with my machine? It really matters, because before you invest all your money into your machine and then you get it and you don't have a computer that will work with it, or a device that will work with it, that's frustrating. That's when they sit in the box and they don't get used. Now, that's a little different for the scan and cut, but only marginally, and here's why. The scan and cut does have some onboard features which make it kind of plug and play. It does have some built-in fonts and shapes and images. You also can upload things to it with a USB. So you can, nowadays, you can even buy USBs loaded with images and things that you can put into your machine. So you don't have to have a computer for that in and of itself. But if you want to do any SVGs or do any like serious manipulation of images and things like that, you will want to use the software that goes with that machine. And in my opinion, the software that works with the Brothers Scan and Cut machine is just not very user-friendly. It's still a little clunky, and I'm hoping that they're going to come out of that, but it takes time. That's not something they can just do overnight, but it's not extremely user-friendly. So you want to think about that. With the Scan and Cut, it's great at scanning and cutting images. It's amazing for that. But if you want to build your own SVGs, if you want to manipulate SVGs, if you want to layer images and build images, it's much more complicated to me than what I'm using with Design Space. Okay, again, opinions, all right? However, I will say this, the Scan and Cut, you can use a third-party software with, okay? And what I mean by that is there's a software out there that I know of that my friends use that's called Sure Cuts a Lot. It's SCAL, S-C-A-L for short. You can use a third-party software. That's still just a matter of downloading that software and using it, to go with your machine. It doesn't come with your machine, and it is a purchase. I don't believe they have a free one. I could be wrong. They might have a free program, but I'm pretty sure you have to purchase that program to go with it. And even at that, it's still a little clunky to work with them back and forth. It's not really just plug and go. It doesn't work exactly like that. So you got to think about that, a lot to think about where this is where machines are concerned. Now, as to the machine itself, let's say you've decided you just want a cutting machine and you're going to purchase one, and you've decided which one you want. Maybe you decided you want to purchase a Cricut machine, okay? Now you're like, which machine? There's so many. And it's the same with all of them. There's so many. There's updated ones, there's ones you can buy used on the internet, there's so many different kinds. This is my best advice for that, okay? These machines are technology based, and anytime you have a program or product of any kind that's technology based, they kind of get outdated pretty quickly. So if I'm making a purchase today, I'm going to purchase the newest software I can afford, or the newest technology I can afford. And what I mean by that is, like, let's look at Cricut, for example. So Cricut has like the Cricut Explorer, the Cricut Explorer Air 2, and the Maker, all right? The Maker is their newest technology. So here's what that's going to mean. It's going to have all the bells and whistles that they can possibly give you. It's going to tweak anything that maybe wasn't great in the previous models, because most of the time when a company brings out a second edition of something, it's going to be tweaked in some way to maybe change something they didn't love so much on the first features. So you always want to buy the newest technology you can afford. Now, that doesn't mean that don't buy it unless you can afford the brand new one. It just means don't buy one 4 or 5 years old if you could afford one that's a year old, okay? It'll just be better in the long run if you do that. So And that's the same for any machine. Even the Scan and Cut has a newer model. And if you can afford the newer model, you need to get it. It's got better bells and whistles on it. It does some cool things a little bit different, right? So you need to think about that. Even that's the same with like your phones. If you're gonna buy a phone, don't buy one that's 5 years older just to save money when you could afford a newer one, because you'll get better features and it'll just work better for you because it's newer. Does that make sense? I think it does. I think we know technology by now. We kind of all know the older the technology, the less easy it is to use nowadays. That's just how it is. And it's not always compatible with everything either. I'm looking at my notes. I think I've told you pretty much everything. Lastly, here's something I want to say to you, just really quick. With any machine you buy, there is a learning curve. There always is. It doesn't matter. No machine I've ever purchased have I pulled out of the box and been a pro with it in the beginning. It just doesn't work that way. You have to learn how the software works. With any machine, you have to learn how the machine works. You have to learn what materials work best in your machine. You have to learn what consumables you'll need, meaning mats and blades and things like that. There's always a learning curve. So don't purchase your machine and 2 weeks later be disappointed that you don't know how to use it fully. You're probably not gonna know in 2 weeks. Now, you may be really whiz with technology and it all makes sense to you, and that's great, but most of the time you have to do some research. And I'm just gonna warn you, I've never purchased a machine that had instructions that made me know how to use it from the instructions. I always had to do my research. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on research as well, okay? YouTube is a wealth of knowledge. There are so many of us out there that are sharing with you tips and tricks for using your software. Any machine, you'll find Silhouette, you'll find Cricut, you'll find Brother Scan and Cut. There are always people out there doing videos with these machines. And you can find paid for classes. There's lots of programs out there where people have done classes like, those like websites where it's like, I can't think of a name of a single one now, but there's websites where you can take online classes. A lot of those online class websites have classes for your cutting machines, believe it or not. I'm looking at putting some on one of those websites, as a matter of fact, so that may be coming in the future. But for now, I have so many resources on my channel that are free with the Cricut and Design Space. So many free ones there. I'm starting up a paid class that'll be coming. You'll hear more about that later. My friend Melody Lane, every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, she does a live Cricut class where you can ask questions. So if there's a project you're working on and you have questions for, she is live every Saturday morning and can answer your questions right then and there. Not to mention the wealth of videos she has. Like, she has a library of Cricut videos that she puts out, and there's so many of us that do that. But you do have to do the homework or do the research. It's not just going to pop up and you're going to understand everything. And don't get frustrated. Sometimes you may just have to walk away from it. Just walk away. Trust me, we all feel that way. Here in our office, me and Amanda are the ones who use the Cricut the most. And I can't tell you how many times Amanda said, all right, look, I'm going to lunch. I'll come back. I'm going to work on that machine later. Sometimes that's just how technology is. I'm that way with cameras. I'm that way with any technology. Sometimes I just have to walk away and come back. The biggest thing I'm going to tell you is this: don't buy or get the machine as a gift and not open it and play with it. So many people say to me, Maymay, I bought a machine a year ago and it's still in the box. And that literally makes me go, oh, you have no idea what all you could have been doing with this machine, and it's still in the box, and it breaks my heart. Don't leave it in the box. It cannot work in the box, right? You have to take it out of the box. All right, the question you all want answered. If I were purchasing a machine today, for myself or as a gift, which one would I purchase? And my answer is the Cricut Maker. And I know that seems crazy because it's the most expensive. Like it sounds like I'm steering you to the most expensive. The truth of the matter is this: it will just do so much. It just has so many capabilities, so many things it can do. And I know that answer may be controversial for some people, because I want you to remember something. Everybody's not going to love the same thing I love. Everybody's not going to believe that the Maker's the best machine. Some people are going to own a machine and think it's the best, and that's just the nature of us as people, okay? So you may comment below, oh, you're wrong about that. I'm telling you today, in my opinion, I'll tell you how many machines I have so you'll know. So you'll know where it comes from. I have the original Explorer, I have the Explorer Air, I have the Explorer Air 2, I have the Maker, I have the Brother Scan and Cut 2, and I have the Brother Scan and Cut DX. All right, so I have that many machines. You don't need that many machines, but I have 6 machines, okay? And I'm telling you, out of those 6 machines, if I were purchasing today, I would get the Maker. I always tell people though, Cricut machines and Brother Scan and Cut machines are really apples and oranges because I purchased them for 2 separate things. So my Scan and Cut is not used for what I use my Cricut for. But everybody wants me to nail down one answer. And as of today, that is my one answer. I would buy the Maker over my Scan and Cut because I would use my Maker so much more because I can always fussy cut if I need to. Okay. That video needed to be made. So many of you ask me that question all the time, and I hope I covered all the big bases. I think I did. I've been studying this for a couple of days. I wrote a blog post. I haven't posted it yet. I've just wrote that blog post to get everything nailed down, and I hope to goodness that this will answer your questions. The best thing to do though, if it doesn't, in the comment section below this video, put in your questions because I read all the comments. I may not respond to every comment, but I read every comment. Put them in there, and if there's a question that I can answer, I will answer it. There might be a question somebody watching today can answer. If you have silhouette questions, I'm just not the person for that. I wish I was, but I try to be real honest with y'all. It's never been a thing where I've said, oh, I'm anti-silhouette. I'm not. I just have never had one, so I can't answer that question. But you never know. There might be people in the comment section that can. I hope that was helpful. I know it's not a craft video today, but I literally this weekend had 4 emails asking this question, and I thought, if 4 people want to know, more people want to know, right? Hey, thanks so much for watching. And any information that I can share for you, I'll put in the description below. Any links, anything I can get for anything I talked about today. So be sure to open the description box so you can see what else might be in there for you. Have a great one, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.